But this is the supreme law of the land. And there's no local government or even governor that can override this law. That's what people don't understand. So when the narrative came out from the White House, which should be 50, then first it was 250, then it was 50, then it was 10. They were not laws. They were just guidelines. And the same thing happened with the city or the governor. From the governor. They're not laws. They're not set into law. You can't just write a law and pass laws. That's not how this thing works. There is the law. That's the law. That's the supreme law of the land. And so, because Americans are so dumbed down, they don't understand what the law is. The law is not what the local city passed. That's why within 3 days after I was arrested, everything was reversed. The church is actually open in the state of Florida. Somebody said, well, why didn't you meet? We couldn't meet. We couldn't meet because all the lies in the media and everybody attacking and, So I'll tell you, we'll make the announcement when the Sunday's going to be, but the sheriff will be there, and we'll have sheriff's department there and everything like that. We'll make sure this church is safe. And he told me that. So I said, well, sheriff, it's up to you. You tell me when you're opening the church. So somebody said, when's it going to be? We'll see. We'll see when that's going to be. But as for now, I'm just going to be here broadcasting every night live, and Sunday mornings we'll be alive. And we started the ball rolling for the First Amendment. It covers 5 areas of Americans' way of life, which they want to, the United Nations wants to get rid of the First Amendment. I got news for you, and I'm going to say this publicly. I'll say this publicly. If they go to mandatory vaccines, there's going to be a showdown at the OK Corral. That's all I can tell you. So, I got news for you. It ain't happening. It'll be a cold day in hell with the devil singing Frosty the Snowman. It ain't happening. Because that's pushed by the World Health Organization. So you remember I'm telling you this right now. Remember what I'm telling you. So the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. So they can't stop the church. That's why we've got churches meeting all over the place. West Palm Beach, a meeting. We got churches in Orlando that are meeting right now. Yeah. It's just the river Tampa Bay couldn't because of all the nonsense out there in the media. And, the media is the media. I don't care what the media do. I never have cared what the media do. I know they're not even looking for the truth. They're only looking for something that's going to sell their stinking papers. All right. So they shall not prohibit the free exercise thereof. That's the law. That's the supreme law of the land, which every elected official must adhere to. Period. If not, they must be removed from office. Then, or the abridging of freedom of speech. That's why we have the right to speak out freely. That's why Facebook is not allowed to censor. Neither is YouTube. They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to. And they're gonna come short. I'm just telling you right now. They're gonna come short. They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to censor freedom of speech or of the press. So if the fake press can have fake press and they can keep printing whatever nonsense they want to, and they try to shut down the narrative, I tell you right now, we should start our own newspapers and start our own circulation in each county. Churches need to have their own papers and just start publishing the news and get all these journalists. And then, no, I'm telling you right now, I'm done. I'm done with all this fake stuff, all controlled. We're about to start our own newspapers. All right, that's another story. If you want to help fund that, let me know. All right, and then the right of the people peaceably to assemble, which that's what we were doing. That's what we are doing. And then to petition the government for redress of grievances, which that means you can go to elected officials and say, excuse me, you can't do this. That's in the First Amendment. Covers 5 areas. 5 areas. And then, of course, goes on the Second Amendment, which is the right of the people to bear arms, which the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment. But the Second Amendment should really be the last resort. It shouldn't be the first thing. Somebody said, well, bless God, we'll just get our guns. you don't know the power of the First Amendment. So the Second Amendment's the last resort. It's like when they pull you over at the side of the road and they're going to vaccinate you on the side of the road. That's when the Second Amendment's coming down, right at that juncture. Because we're not dying as slaves. We'll die as free men. And somebody said, well, you can't do that in my country. Well, I'm not in your country. We're in America. And last time I checked, this is still the United States. I grew up watching John Wayne, and, so, hey, it is what it is. So there's going to be a showdown at the OK Corral. And I'm not one for violence. I don't believe we should be using it, but it's in the Constitution. And if it comes down to the bottom line that it's that far gone, then, okay, then that's what it is. And I say goodbye to my wife and everybody, and I'm going out. It's a case of say hello to my little friend, and, Anyway, and I'm studying all the constitutions of different countries, from Canada, Australia. They got basically no rights. They're just subjects of the Queen. They all are subjects and slaves of the Queen of England. England is the same thing. I mean, they're all subject to the crown, And then people say, well, thank God we have a Christian queen. We have a Christian president. What good does it help you when the people underneath them are passing laws to take away all your rights and your freedoms, and then you subject it to the Church of England, which is totally acquiesced to the globalist agenda, and then you got the Pope telling everybody that they should all just obey the lockdown. Since when does the Pope suddenly he's in charge of everything and everybody needs to just sit down and obey the Pope? What is wrong with you people? So anyway, people need to stand up for their rights. And people have. Down through the centuries and down through the years, men and women have stood up for their rights and privileges and freedoms to speak out freely. You can imagine Martin Luther speaking out 500 years ago against Catholicism and the fact that they were selling indulgences and trying to buy people salvation after they died. And he came out and said, absolutely not. It's justification by faith. It's justification by faith. And, I mean, he revolted. And everybody says, oh, well, we just Christians, we must just succumb. When they translate the Bible out of the Latin, people were burned at the stake. The Bible was not supposed to be made available to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. The Bible was supposed to be in the hands of the Pope. And then he would just stand there and talk Latin, and most people didn't even understand what he was saying. So that's how they kept everybody in the dark. And, of course, then the printing press came. So there was a revolution that took place at that time. 500 years later, here we find the world about to sink into total tyranny, taken over by the World Health Organization because the president wouldn't sign into the climate change agreement of Paris Treaty, which would have allowed the globalist offshore banking cabal to get $1.5 trillion a year in what they call carbon tax. So suddenly the WHO comes along here and it's a whole medical takeover of the globe on some virus that's run around. You don't really know what it is, where it is. Somebody's got it. Everybody needs to get tested for it. And, countries that have had 80 people die, they got like 60, 70 million people, 80 have dead. And then they're saying, well, it's because we quarantine. You obviously don't really understand the country. You don't know what's going on in the country. You don't understand how the country functions. You might quarantine some people in the bigger cities, but when you start moving out into the townships and whatever, you ain't quarantining nobody. They're on the move and they'll continue to move. So people, I've never found so many stupid people in my life. I thought that we in the 21st century, that we'd have intelligent people and you could actually talk to them. Nah. You got people, they just sit at home and just watch CNN and watch all the mainstream media and believe everything they say as though it is the gospel. It is not. It's propaganda. And the moment you realize that, the moment the scales will fall from your eyes and you begin to study for yourself. And I pray this is what you've been doing during the lockdown season, or whatever you want to call the season, and you actually get to find out what's actually going on here. Get your head out of the rear end of the mainstream media. Some of you, your heads are so far up the rear end of the mainstream media that if the mainstream media was treated for hemorrhoids, they'd be wiping the underneath of your feet. What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? It's like the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top floor. It's like the hamburger short of a Happy Meal. The lights are on, nobody's home. It's like they're on time sharing and it's just not their week. How in the world do you not understand that all the media is controlled by 6 companies? Don't you understand that? Why do you sit and watch and flip the channels? Why won't you study for yourself? Why won't you look at opposing opinions? Why won't you ask questions? Why do you just sit and believe every nonsense that comes down the pike? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Somebody needs to grab you and shake you till your false teeth rattle. What's wrong with you? Come on. Wake up.